Welcome to Sunday Satsang. I love you with all my heart. We are a spiritual family, even though sometimes you may not feel like it. You may feel a bit alienated from the rest of us. But we consistently come together to celebrate spirit. And as a family, we want to protect each other, help each other, empower each other. Part of my job as a spiritual teacher is to empower you, to give you confidence in your spiritual practice. No matter how confused, how down you are, how energyless you are, to convince you that there is a goal there somewhere to be obtained through spiritual practice. It's so good to see you all. It's so good. For the first 10 years I practiced, I had an enormous amount of spiritual experiences, which have continued for 50 years or more. Spiritual experiences occur when your mind is stressed in various ways. Spiritual experiences change the way we see the world, the way we experience the world and ourselves. If you get to the place where you don't feel strained anymore to seek, or there's some other condition you're running towards or running from, you won't have any more spiritual experiences. Spiritual experiences come out of stress. As the mind is stressed, the perception of the world is stressed. When you no longer feel stress, your world is calm. Your world is silent. Your world is happy. You may or may not feel energies, but you can feel the life force at the center of your being. And you do know that the I you've been searching for, the self you've been searching for, has been hidden behind all of the objects you have sought as self. When you find emptiness, you think you're emptiness. When you first find energies, you may think that you are the energies. When you find bliss, you may think that you are bliss. When you find nothingness, you may think that you're nothingness, like Nisargadatta claims. But all of these are just words that point to certain experiences. And the number of experiences you can have in your spiritual career is determined by what kind of ideas you're exposed to, what kind of religions you're exposed to, whether you take drugs or not, whether you meditate a lot or you practice loving. Each of these subpaths generates a series of experiences regarding your inner self. So one day you find yourself as being love itself. The next day as emptiness and having no self. The next day, your total unlimited energy as God shows himself to you. Another day, you realize that the phrase, God shows himself to you, is an untruth. What it means is you've had an experience and you give it an interpretation so that that other people can understand it, even though what you're saying to them will not be what you experienced, but how they interpreted it. If you use the word God, they will use their interpretation of the word God, their understanding of the word God, to create an experience like yours of having God reveal himself to you. It might be as a white-bearded giant on a throne. It might be as inner white energy of great power coming up through your heart and mind. It might be a total relaxed love of all things. It might be an experience of oneness. It might be the feeling of the coming down of grace into you as light or as feeling of forgiveness and loss of guilt, of being pure. All these experiences can be yours. And each experience you have will change your idea of what spirituality is and who you are. When you first experience yourself as emptiness, you might feel great fear because you no longer exist and you wonder who's going to take care of you, which implies there is another you that you're not seeing, which is frightened about not being taken care of. When you experience yourself as total love, you become so happy that you're love itself. This may go on for weeks before it wears off. One by one, you have new experiences which expose you to different parts of yourself, different rooms in your spiritual mansion. And for a day or two or a month or two or a year or two, you identify with the experiences in that world, in that room, as the essential you. But it does not last. One by one, you see that these experiences and states that you identify with seem strange to you. You recognize, you realize you, as the witness, are watching these states. And then they seem different from you. The mere witnessing creates a sense of distance. You're observing them. You're separate from them. But when when you first discover yourself as love itself, there's no distance. You just love everyone and everything. When you discover that you're emptiness, you find there's nothingness anywhere, or no thingness anywhere, just emptiness, just space. And you may dwell in that space for years, thinking you're the void, sitting in a chair all day, meditating on the void. And that gets old. And you see, no matter how hard you try, you're not identical to the void, to the emptiness. And you wait for something else, whether it's love, energies, even fear, something else. One by one, this happens to you 58 times, 100 times over a lifetime. Exposure to a new spiritual state, a new sense of existence, a new idea of who you are. And for a while, you identify with this state of joy, of Shakti, of peace, of space, of silence, of power, which all give way to becoming like shadows. It's not that they're not real. It's just that they lose their sense of importance to you. You get bored with emptiness instead of fascinated by the openness of the cosmos inside and outside. You become love itself, for weeks maybe. And after the same experience of being loved for a few weeks, it loses its fascination for you. One by one, the rooms in your cosmic mansion of who you are shown to you, and you live in them for a while until you find they are not you. You lose interest in them and look for another room. You may go into depression for a while, thinking you've lost paradise. You're now living in a dark night of the soul after having found infinite joy or love or emptiness. But they've gone away, they've left you, or they've abandoned you. God has abandoned you. And you feel lost with no foundation, no place to lay your head, no place to plant your feet, so to speak. You just feel confused and lost and perhaps terrified because you don't know anymore anything. And then the next thing happens. You find the next thing. You go from emptiness to becoming love itself, then becoming just totally devoted to another, surrender to another, feeling Shakti thereby, opening up to the energies, feeling the chakras, gaining psychic powers of healing or other kinds of siddha, other kinds of mystical powers, like being able to see into the future or see into the minds of others, or to be able to heal. And you play with these for years until they lose their value to you. You've had enough failures with healing, along with your successes, that your talent doesn't feel that special anymore. You see the limits of it. It's like learning your limits to doing a bench press. Your bench press limits may be 110 pounds. And you struggle and struggle to do more than that, but it's harder and harder. The same thing with healing. When instead of being able to heal almost everyone you come in contact with, it gets harder and harder to heal. You begin to lose interest in it. Maybe even lose interest in feeling Shakti, the movements of energies in you. Maybe even the joy leaves, leaving only calmness, which is kind of boring. But there's a satisfaction in feeling the calmness. And after a while, a long while, you lose all interest in the search. But somewhere along the line, that which is really the core you shows itself by both a feeling and an intuition. It is an object after all. The I, the self, the subject. But it's not an I, it's an object. Like bliss, like knowledge, like power, like light. It's more like spirit. And you can look into the center of your being and your heart. And you can feel the energy boiling there, twisting and turning, flowing in and out. And what you do is you find there your ability to feel, your ability to hear, your ability to smell, your ability to touch, your ability to think, your ability to feel fear, emotions, feel fear, feel bliss. And this is what you are. Not an object, but verbs, a power. The power to do this or to do that. It's not a noun. It's your sentience, your ability to be aware, your ability to think, your ability to touch, your ability to go into various states, none of which are constantly you. Even being love is not permanent. All of these things and states you see and feel are objects. They're experiences. But you are not the experiences. You are the experiencer. But this is not seen just as logically making sense. As being truth. This is because you're resting in that potentiality of seeing, hearing, laughing, loving, perceiving energy, perceiving light. It's like looking into a hole, a physical hole in yourself. And in that hole, that darkness, so to speak, you find your ability, all of your abilities, to be in and experience the world. That is you. But then you also realize that all those states you've experienced for one day or 1 year, or 5 years, and then rejected as you, are also you. They're various parts of that spiritual mansion. But at the very core of that spiritual mansion is the one that can perceive all the different rooms and travel to the different rooms, but itself is not visible except until after you've exhausted all of the rooms themselves, leaving you with nothing but the subject. I cannot describe the subject because it's not a thing. It's more like witnessing a black hole and not being able to say anything about it because you're lost inside of it. I can only tell you it's there. And when you find it, you'll know it's the self. You can't tell anything about this self, whether it's eternal or temporary, whether it's bright or dark, whether it's up or down, whether it's happiness there or unhappiness, whether there are emotions or not. It's like beyond all of those, before all of those, the witness of all. And that same witness experience occurs in each of us, so well hidden beneath our observations of the world and our ignorance of the mansion that we are, that we only know through spiritual practice. Spiritual practice allows us to examine the mansion through and through until we get it, that nothing we find in experiences is really us. There are our experiences, our clothes, our form. But the formless one, lying before and underneath the experiences, is invisible. Only the entranceway, only the whole is seen as having an existence, but nothing in it is observable. Only the feeling of the totality of life being wrapped up in there. The life force, or the life sentience, the ability to do anything or end everything, is in there as a feeling. It's a very tender feeling. The tenderest of all feelings in your heart of hearts. That is your source. You undiscovered it when you're through with the search. When you can come to rest in yourself after you give up all your powers, all your accomplishments, all your egotism, all your superiority, all your knowledge, all your specialness. And just relax. Just relax, knowing you can't know by searching in various rooms of the house who you are, but only after you've experienced so many of them, you know that experiences are not who you are. You are that which experiences happen to. You are that who witnesses experiences. And although you haven't been able to see yourself clearly as this witness for a long time, you've known about the existence of the witness, because in any experience you have, eventually, you see that you're separate from the experience. And when the separateness finally goes away, you find yourself in this whole that goes to your heart of hearts. And you can just lie there and choose to either sink into nothingness or visit the various rooms as they come to you. Without effort, without intent, you just allow the rooms to come to you and wash over you. For some of you, these rooms can be very hostile, filled with fear, hopelessness, dryness, tension. For others, it can be very satisfying, filled with love, energies, bliss, joy, an unbounded sense of power or completeness. You just want to laugh because you are the self. Or at least that's what you believe at this time. I am the self. But when you find the self, it's not what you think it was. It's not bellicose. It's not big. It's not the power of God. All these things are alien to the self. The self is just the perceiver of these states, the passive perceiver that is not so passive. Because in that whole, you can sense enormous twisting of powers and energies that are invisible to you. This is where the external world is created, in that cauldron of receptivity, that soup of receptivity, which is different for every person. So the world perceived by everybody is slightly different and brought into coordination only through family and socialization, so that we more or less experience the same thing. And if we experience it even more through resonation, we vibrate with each other, so that the experiences we experience with another become more truly similar to their own. We all resonate in a way. We all resonate with our culture, whether it's European, American, South American, indigenous, Eskimo. And that similarity makes the world real for us in our culture. And then we create stock markets, businesses, etc., and war. But the whole, that gap inside of us, is not touched by anything that we perceive, including the death of our bodies. All these things are external to that gap, that hole, wherein the perceiver dwells, looking through the world, through the hole, from the other way, and the world becoming like the unfolding patterns in a kaleidoscope, ever changing, ever changing, ever changing, therefore not real. The reality is that which you cannot perceive. Reality is the host that receives and interprets the world. Such is the triest truth that I can give to you. The amount of spiritual experiences you have and their nature depends on the bending of your mind, what kind of stresses you feel. These determine what kind of spiritual experiences you have, from nasty ones to fantastic ones. Generally, you can say the more relaxed you are, the more happy you will become. The states perceived will be more gentle, matching the gentleness with which you perceive it. That's why I say over and over again to many people, just relax. Do everything you can to relax. Take long, slow breaths and relax your muscles as you breathe out for 4 or 5 or 6 seconds. Lay in bed in the morning after you wake up and just feel. Feel inside for your origin. It's no longer an object you're looking for, but the feeler, the seer, taster, toucher, the hearer, the one who loves, the one who acts, the core of yourself, the subject of yourself, which cannot be seen, can only be sort of intuited through the whole as an intuition of a lot of activity down there, which you cannot see or experience. But it's very busy and it manifests as the external world. This is the truth. This is my highest truth that I offer to you. As much as you can, pay attention to yourself and also relax. Relaxation is your best course of action throughout the entirety of your spiritual career. I was so tight during the first 10 years, practicing meditation 10 hours a day, sitting in full lotus or half lotus, feeling all kinds of strange states, being negatively influenced by moonlight, feeling the Earth's magnetic field when I stood up, feeling the electricity in the wires in the wall, all kinds of experiences. Kundalini going up my spine, feeling like a sharp lead pestle being pushed up my spine, very painfully. And it got blocked at the heart. And that continued off and on for 6 years to feel that painful pencil being driven up my spine. Now I'm free. I can be nothing. Or I can lie in my heart of hearts, core of my being, and just let the states come to me. The state of being awake, the state of being asleep, the experiencer of the world. Just resting, having seen that in a sense it's false because it's only temporarily you. Everything you see, touch, taste, feel, understand is only temporarily you until you stop identifying with it and it loses its interest in you. Or you lose your interest in it and become more interested in who's interested. This is the truth. The best way for all of you is to just relax. Just relax into yourself. Collapse into yourself. Become yourself. Can we have 5 or 10 minutes of chanting? Something light and not death-like.